The massive arena on planet Velthor buzzed with the chatter of 1,000 different alien species. Ji-Won Park stood near the back of the human delegation, his hands clasped behind his back, watching the proceedings with quiet eyes. He was a thin man in his mid-30s, wearing the simple gray uniform of Earth's Merchant Fleet Engineering Division. Nothing about him suggested importance or danger. He preferred it that way. At the center of the arena floor, Ambassador Yuna was locked in a heated debate with the Draxian representative. The dispute was simple enough on the surface. A shipment of rare metals had gone missing, and both sides blamed the other. But underneath, Ji-Won knew this was about something else. The Draxian Empire wanted to test humanity, to see if these newcomers to the galactic stage would bend or break. Captain Minho shifted uncomfortably beside Ji-Won. "This is getting bad," he muttered. "They're not going to let this go." Ji-Won said nothing. He had seen this pattern before, in other places, in other times. Pride and posturing always led to the same place. The Draxian representative suddenly stepped aside, and the crowd fell silent. Through the massive doorway came Princess Calva, and even Ji-Won had to admit she was impressive. She stood nearly 7 feet tall, her blue-scaled skin gleaming under the arena lights. Her armor was ornate but functional, marked with the symbols of countless victories. She moved with the fluid confidence of someone who had never known defeat. The princess walked directly to the center of the arena, ignoring Ambassador Yuna entirely. When she spoke, her voice carried to every corner of the space without need for amplification. "I am Calva, Crown Princess of the Draxian Empire, undefeated champion of 300 duels." She swept her gaze across the human delegation with barely concealed contempt. "I have heard much about humanity. You talk of peace and trade, but I see only weakness. You hide behind words because you lack the strength for action." Ambassador Yuna stepped forward, her diplomatic training keeping her voice level. "Princess Calva, we came here to resolve a trade dispute, not to engage in silence." The princess cut her off with a gesture. "I invoke the right of challenge under galactic law. Your people have insulted the honor of the Draxian Empire. Send your strongest warrior to face me in single combat, or forfeit your trading rights in the Velthor, Nexus, and Outer Rim systems." The human delegation erupted in shocked whispers. Those 3 systems represented nearly 40% of Earth's interstellar commerce. Losing access would be devastating. Captain Minho leaned close to Yuna. "We don't have any combat specialists with us. The closest military ship is 3 weeks away." Yuna's face remained calm, but Ji-Won could see the tension in her shoulders. She knew they had no choice. The right of challenge was ancient law, respected by all galactic civilizations. To refuse would mark humanity as cowards, closing doors across the galaxy that had taken decades to open. "We need time to send for," Yuna began. 3 days, Calva interrupted. "By galactic law, you have 3 days to present a champion. If you have none aboard your vessels, then you have already answered." She smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Humanity will learn its place in the galaxy, beneath the strong." Ji-Won felt something stir inside him, something he had buried deep years ago. He tried to push it down, to let it pass. He was an engineer now. That other life was over. He had promised himself. But then Calva laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the arena. "Look at them," she called out to the assembled aliens. They cannot even muster the courage to respond. Is this the great humanity we heard such stories about? They are nothing but prey, pretending to be predators. The alien crowd joined in her laughter. Some species howled, others clicked or chirped, but the message was universal. Mockery. Contempt. Ji-Won closed his eyes. He saw faces from long ago. His team. His brothers and sisters in arms. All gone now, buried in the cold moons of Jupiter. He had retired to honor their memory, to choose peace over violence. But he also remembered what they had fought for: humanity's right to stand tall, to not be pushed around, to be respected. He stepped forward. Captain Minho grabbed his arm. "Jiwan, what are you doing?" Jiwan gently removed the captain's hand and kept walking. The crowd noise faded as he crossed the arena floor. Ambassador Yuna turned, her eyes widening as she recognized who was approaching. "Jiao, no," she started, but he was already past her, stopping 10 feet from Princess Calva. Up close, she was even more imposing. Her muscles rippled beneath her scales, and her eyes held the confidence of someone who had crushed every opponent she had ever faced. Jiwan looked up at her calmly. "I accept your challenge." For a moment, there was complete silence. Then the arena exploded with noise. The aliens were shouting, some in excitement, most in disbelief. The human delegation stood frozen in shock. Calva stared down at him, then threw her head back and laughed harder than before. "You? An engineer?" She looked him up and down, taking in his slight build, his unremarkable appearance. "I have defeated the greatest warriors of a dozen species. I have killed Vraxian berserkers with my bare hands. I have stood alone against 5 opponents and emerged victorious." She leaned down, bringing her face close to his. "You cannot last a minute against me, human." Jiwan met her eyes without flinching. Something in his gaze made her smile falter, just for a fraction of a second. But then her arrogance returned, stronger than before. "So be it," she declared, straightening up. 3 days from now, we will meet in this arena. I will break you quickly, human, because despite your foolishness, you showed courage to step forward. That deserves a swift end." She turned and strode away, her entourage following. The crowd continued to buzz with excitement, already spreading the news across the galaxy. The bookmakers were certainly already setting odds. Jiwan imagined they would not be favorable to him. Ambassador Yuna rushed to his side, Captain Minho right behind her. "Jiwan, why would you do this?" she demanded. "You're an engineer. This is suicide." Jiwan watched the princess disappear through the doorway. "Someone had to step forward," he said quietly. "But you," Minho stopped, really looking at Jiwan for the first time. There was something different about the man's posture now, something in the set of his shoulders. "Who are you, really?" Jiwan turned to face them. Ambassador Yuna gasped softly. His eyes had changed. They were still calm, still quiet, but now they held something else. Something cold and deep and very, very old. "Just an engineer, Captain," Jiwan said. "Just an engineer." But as he walked away to prepare, Yuna knew she had just seen something that would change everything. She had seen a glimpse of who Jiwan Park used to be, before he became the quiet man who fixed engines and avoided attention. She had seen the ghost of a warrior who had once made enemies tremble, and Princess Calva had just challenged him to a fight. The human ship felt smaller somehow as word of the challenge spread through its corridors. Crew members whispered in corners, their faces tight with worry. Jiwan Park sat in the small gym, going through basic stretches, while half the engineering department watched from the doorway like he was already a dead man. He did not blame them. What they saw was a mild-mannered engineer who spent his days calibrating fusion cores and repairing hull plating. They had no reason to believe he could survive even 30 seconds against a warrior princess who had been training since childhood. Captain Minho entered the gym, his expression troubled. "Jiwan, we need to talk." Jiwan stood, rolling his shoulders. "I know what you are going to say, Captain. You are going to try to talk me out of this." "Damn right I am," Minho said. "This is insane. We can delay, send for military support, find another way." "There is no other way," Jiwan interrupted gently. "You know the laws. We either fight or we lose those trade routes. And if we show weakness now, every other species will push harder. Humanity will spend the next century being treated as prey. Minho ran a hand through his hair in frustration. But why does it have to be you? You are an engineer, not a soldier. The gym door hissed open before Ji-won could answer. A man stepped through, tall and broad-shouldered, with scars visible on his neck above his collar. He wore civilian clothes, but something about the way he moved suggested military training. Actually, Captain, the newcomer said, that is not entirely accurate. Minho spun around. Who the hell are you? This is a restricted area. The man smiled and pulled out identification. Commander Hyan, Earth Special Operations Division. Retired, officially. He looked at Ji-won. It has been a long time, brother. Ji-won's expression did not change, but something passed between the two men. A recognition. A shared history. Hyan, Ji-won said simply. You should not have come. When I heard the ghost of Ganymede was coming out of retirement, I had to see it with my own eyes. Hyan turned to Captain Minho. Captain, do you know who you have been working with for the past 3 years? Minho looked between them, confused. He is Ji-won Park, my chief engineer. What are you talking about? Hyan pulled up a holographic display from his wrist device. Classified file. Authorization Hyan 77 Delta. The display flickered to life, showing a younger Ji-won in military gear, his face harder, his eyes colder. Ji-won Park, former operative of the Shadow Unit. 43 confirmed solo missions. 67 enemy combatants neutralized. Specialist in impossible situations. Minho stared at the image, then at Ji-won. This cannot be real. It is real, Ji-won said quietly. It was also a long time ago. Hyan swiped through more images. Ji-won on hostile planets. Ji-won emerging from burning buildings. Ji-won standing alone against overwhelming odds. The Ganymede incident, 7 years ago. An entire unit was ambushed by separatist forces in the ice caves. Everyone died except one man. That man fought his way through 40 enemies, survived for 3 weeks in sub-zero temperatures, and walked out carrying the bodies of his fallen team. The gym had gone completely silent. Every crew member was staring at Ji-won with new eyes. After that, Hyan continued, he retired, disappeared. We thought he wanted to be left alone. He closed the display. But I guess some things you cannot run from forever. Captain Minho found his voice. Why did you never say anything? Ji-won met his eyes. Because that person is dead, Captain. I became an engineer because I was tired of war. I wanted to build things instead of destroying them. I wanted peace. Then why accept the challenge? Minho demanded. Because peace only exists when people are willing to defend it, Ji-won said. He looked around at the crew members, watching him. These people, this ship, humanity itself, all of it is worth fighting for. One more time. Across the planet, in the Draxian royal vessel, Princess Kelva was engaged in her own preparations. The training room echoed with the sounds of combat as she demolished practice drones with brutal efficiency. Her movements were a deadly dance, each strike powerful enough to shatter bone. Each dodge perfectly timed. Her advisor, Drexthel, watched from the observation deck. He was old for a Draxian. His scales faded to a dull gray, but his mind remained sharp. Something about this situation troubled him. Princess, he called down. Might I have a word? Kelva destroyed the last drone with a spinning kick and looked up. What is it, old one? I am busy preparing to crush this human insect. Drexthel descended to the training floor, his movements careful. I have been researching humanity since the challenge was issued. What I have found is concerning. Kelva laughed. Concerning? They are weak, Drexthel. Physically inferior to most galactic species. Slow. Fragile. What could possibly be concerning? Their history, Drextel said. He activated his own holographic display, showing images of Earth. This planet has known almost continuous warfare for thousands of years. Their species evolved through conflict. They have more words for war than most species have for peace. So they fight among themselves, Kelva said dismissively. That shows only that they lack unity. No, Princess. It shows they understand war in ways we do not. Drextel pulled up battle statistics. In recorded history, humanity has engaged in over 15,000 significant conflicts. They have developed hundreds of different martial arts, thousands of weapons, countless strategies and tactics. War is not something they do. It is something they are. Kelva frowned. You are saying this engineer is dangerous? I'm saying we know nothing about him, Drextel warned. Why would an engineer accept a challenge against the greatest warrior in the Draxian Empire? It makes no sense unless he is a fool, Kelva interrupted. Which he clearly is. Your paranoia is showing, old friend. I appreciate your concern, but it is misplaced. I have fought champions from species far stronger than humans. This will be over quickly. Drextel bowed, but his worry remained. He had lived long enough to know that the most dangerous opponents were the ones who appeared harmless. Back on the human ship, Jiwan was in the observation deck, looking out at the stars. Hyan found him there as the artificial night cycle began. Cannot sleep? Han asked, joining him at the window. Too many memories, Jiwan admitted. I thought I had left this behind. You cannot leave behind what you are, Hyan said. I tried to. We all did. But men like us, we are shaped by what we survived. The question is not whether you are still a warrior. The question is whether you can be one without losing yourself. Jiwan was quiet for a long moment. Do you remember what Commander Taiyang used to say? Before every mission? Hyan smiled sadly. Fight smart, not hard. Survive to fight another day. Honor the fallen by living well. I have tried to live well, Jiwan said. I really have. I know, brother. But right now, humanity needs you to fight smart. Can you do that? Can you be what you were just one more time without letting it consume you? Jiwan turned from the window. His reflection in the glass showed two images overlaid, the quiet engineer and the ghost of the warrior he used to be. I will do what needs to be done. Then I will go back to my engines and my quiet life. And if the princess is as good as they say, Jiwan's expression hardened slightly. Then she will learn what it means to face a human who has nothing left to lose and everything to protect. Ambassador Yuna watched from the doorway, having heard the entire conversation. She finally understood what she was seeing. Jiwan Park was not just accepting a challenge. He was making a statement for all of humanity. He was saying that humans might be weaker, slower, and smaller than most aliens, but they were survivors. They were fighters. They were not prey. The galaxy was broadcasting the upcoming fight to billions of viewers. The odds were heavily against Jiwan. Most aliens saw it as entertainment, a quick and brutal demonstration of superior Draxian strength. But Yuna knew better now. She had seen Jiwan's eyes. She had heard his story. And she knew that Princess Kelva had made a terrible mistake. She had not challenged an engineer. She had challenged a ghost. And ghosts, Yuna had learned, were very hard to kill. The arena was packed with over 50,000 spectators from across the galaxy. Holographic cameras floated everywhere, transmitting the event to billions more viewers on thousands of worlds. The atmosphere crackled with excitement and bloodlust. Most of the aliens had come to see a human broken quickly and efficiently. It would be a good show, they thought. Brief, but entertaining. G1 stood in the preparation chamber beneath the arena floor, wearing simple black combat attire provided by the arena officials. No armor, no weapons, just reinforced fabric that would not restrict movement. He could hear the crowd roaring above him, their various alien sounds blending into a wall of noise. Hyan stood with him, making final checks. Remember, she will try to end it fast. She wants to look dominant. Use that, Ji-won nodded. His face was calm, but inside, old instincts were waking up. Muscle memory from 1,000 training sessions. Combat awareness that had kept him alive when others died. The ability to read an opponent, to adapt, to survive. Whatever happens, Ji-won said quietly, tell Captain Minho I did not regret any of my time as an engineer. That life was good. You will tell him yourself, Hyan said firmly. After you win. After you win. Above them, the arena announcer, a floating jellyfish-like creature named Shirath, was working the crowd into a frenzy. Its translator broadcast in every major galactic language. Citizens of the galaxy, the moment has arrived. In one corner, the undefeated champion, the pride of the Draxian Empire, Princess Calva. The crowd erupted as a massive door opened and Calva strode out. She had chosen ceremonial armor that gleamed like liquid silver, each piece etched with her victories. She raised her arms and the crowd screamed its approval. And in the other corner, representing humanity, the engineer, Ji-won Park. The door in front of Ji-won opened. The noise that greeted him was different. Laughter. Mockery. Some aliens were already turning away, convinced the fight would be over too quickly to bother watching. Ji-won walked into the light. The arena was enormous, a circular space 200 feet across with a packed dirt floor. Weapon racks lined the walls, but this would be hand-to-hand combat only, as tradition demanded. He could see the human delegation in a special viewing box. Ambassador Yuna stood at the rail, her face tight with worry. Captain Minho was beside her, and behind them, the crew who had served with Ji-won for 3 years, all of them looking like they were attending a funeral. Calva waited at the center of the arena, her posture radiating confidence. As Ji-won approached, he could see she had removed most of her ceremonial armor, keeping only basic protection on her forearms and shins. She wanted the crowd to see her superiority. Shirath floated between them. The rules are simple. Combat continues until one fighter yields, is incapacitated, or dies. There are no other restrictions. Do both fighters understand? Calva nodded, never taking her eyes off Ji-won. Yes, Ji-won said simply. The princess stepped closer, towering over him. I will give you one final chance, human. Surrender now, and I will make your defeat quick and painless. You showed courage by stepping forward. That deserves some mercy. Ji-won looked up at her calmly. Begin when ready. Something flickered in Calva's eyes. Surprise, perhaps, or annoyance. She had expected fear, or at least nervousness. Instead, this small human stood before her with the stillness of deep water. Shirath floated upward rapidly. Let the challenge begin. A massive gong sounded, and the crowd fell into anticipatory silence. Calva exploded into motion. She was fast, incredibly fast, crossing the distance between them in less than a second. Her opening strike was a straightforward punch aimed at Ji-won's head, powerful enough to shatter concrete. Ji-won's head moved exactly 6 inches to the left. The punch whistled past his ear. Calva did not pause. She followed with a spinning kick that should have taken Ji-won's legs out from under him. He shifted his weight, and the kick passed beneath him. A rapid combination of strikes came next, each one capable of ending the fight. Ji-won deflected, blocked, or evaded every single one. 15 seconds had passed. The crowd noise changed. The laughter was fading, replaced by surprised murmurs. Calva increased her speed, using techniques that had defeated champions from warrior species across the galaxy. She attacked high and low, mixing feints with real strikes, Using her superior reach and strength to control the space, G1 moved like water flowing around rocks. He never moved more than necessary. When she struck high, he was low. When she swept left, he was right. His footwork was perfect, his timing precise. He was not fighting her strength with strength. He was simply not being where her attacks landed. 30 seconds. Ambassador. Yuna was gripping the rail so hard, her knuckles were white. He is not attacking, she whispered. Why is he not attacking? Hyan stood behind her, arms crossed, a slight smile on his face. He is reading her, learning her patterns. The Shadow Unit taught us that the first rule of survival is understanding your enemy. 45 seconds. Calva's strikes were becoming more aggressive, more desperate. She had never, in 300 duels, faced an opponent who could evade her for this long. She launched herself into a complex aerial attack. Spinning through the air with claws extended, G1 dropped into a roll. Came up behind her as she landed, and for just a moment, could have struck her exposed back. Instead, he simply stepped away, resuming his defensive stance. The crowd saw it. Calva saw it. He had chosen not to attack when he had a clear opening. The princess turned to face him, breathing slightly harder now. Her expression had changed. The amused superiority was gone. In its place was focus, real focus. The look of a warrior who realizes she is in an actual fight. Why do you not attack? She demanded. G1's expression remained calm. You said I could not last a minute against you. 60 seconds. The gong sounded, marking the first minute. The arena fell completely silent. Every being present understood what had just happened. The human had not just survived the first minute. He had done so while barely even trying. Calva had used techniques that had crushed opponents in seconds, and this small human engineer had made them all look useless. G1 shifted his stance. His weight settled differently. His hands moved into a new position. To anyone who understood combat, the message was clear. The defensive phase was over. He met Calva's eyes with that same calm gaze, but now there was something else in it. Something cold and patient and utterly merciless. Are you ready now? He asked quietly. Calva felt something she had not experienced in years of combat. A chill ran down her spine. This was not fear, she told herself. She was a princess, a warrior, undefeated. But her body knew what her pride refused to accept. She was in danger. The human in front of her was not an engineer who happened to know some fighting techniques. He was something else entirely. Something that had been hiding behind a mask of normalcy. Waiting. G1 Park, the ghost of Ganymede. The man who had survived when everyone else died. The soldier who had walked through hell and come out the other side. Was finally showing his true face. And Princess Calva, for the first time in her life, understood what it meant to be the prey instead of the predator. The crowd began to murmur, then to shout as realization spread through the arena. This was not going to be the quick, brutal demonstration they had expected. This was going to be something else entirely. This was going to be a war. And humanity, as the galaxy was about to learn, had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of war. G1 moved forward, and the real fight began. G1's first real attack was not flashy. There was no dramatic leap, no war cry, no wasted movement. He simply closed the distance and struck at Calva's left knee with a precise, economical kick. The princess blocked it, but the impact forced her back a step. Her eyes widened slightly. The force behind that kick was far greater than his size suggested. Before she could reset her stance, G1 was already moving again, flowing into a different angle, attacking her right side. Calva deflected and countered with a powerful backhand. G1 ducked under it and drove his elbow into her ribs. The ceremonial armor absorbed most of the impact, but she felt it. He was targeting weak points, joints, areas where even her superior strength could not fully protect her. The fight became a deadly dance. Kelva used her reach and power, trying to land the single devastating blow that would end things. Ji-won used precision and timing, never meeting her strength directly, always redirecting, always moving Dot in the Draxian viewing box. Advisor Drextel leaned forward, his old eyes narrowed. "Do you see it, my lord?" he said to the Draxian Emperor beside him. "See what?" The Emperor rumbled. "The human is not fighting like our warriors fight. He is not trying to overpower her. He is wearing her down. Look at his breathing, steady. Look at his movements, efficient. He wastes nothing." On the arena floor, Kelva was beginning to realize the same thing. Every exchange left her slightly more tired, while Ji-won seemed unchanged. When she threw 10 strikes, he deflected them with 5 movements. When she moved 3 steps, he moved 1. He was fighting with a terrible efficiency that she had never encountered before. She switched tactics, trying to use her superior speed to overwhelm him. A flurry of strikes came from every angle. Ji-won's defense became a blur of motion, his hands and arms moving just fast enough to redirect each attack away from vital areas. Some blows landed, leaving bruises that would later turn purple on his arms and shoulders, but none of them hit clean. 3 minutes had passed Dot in the viewing box. Captain Minho watched in awe. How is he doing this? She is stronger, faster, has longer reach. Hyen never took his eyes off the fight. Ji-won once told me something his first instructor taught him. Fighting is not about being the strongest. It is about being the smartest, the most patient, and the most willing to do what needs to be done. He pointed at the arena. Watch his eyes. He is reading her. Every move she makes, he is learning. He is adapting. Ambassador Yuna saw it too. Every time Kelva used a technique, Ji-won's counter the next time was better, faster, more precise. He was treating the fight like a problem to be solved, analyzing and adjusting with cold calculation. Kelva backed off, breathing harder now. Sweat gleamed on her scales. This human should have been broken by now. She had hit him dozens of times. She had used techniques that had defeated opponents twice his size. But he kept coming, kept adapting, kept fighting with that infuriating calm. "What are you?" she demanded, her voice carrying across the arena. Ji-won did not answer. He simply moved forward again, and this time his attack pattern changed completely. He switched from defensive to aggressive in a heartbeat, using a style she had not seen before. His strikes came from unexpected angles, targeting pressure points and nerve clusters with frightening precision. The crowd was going wild now. This was not the quick execution they had expected. This was a real fight, a battle between 2 skilled warriors. The betting odds were changing rapidly as aliens who had dismissed humanity began to recalculate. 5 minutes. Kelva roared and charged, abandoning technique for raw power. Her claws raked toward Ji-won's face. He caught her wrist, twisted, and used her own momentum to throw her. She rolled and came up fast, but he was already inside her guard, striking at her solar plexus with a palm strike that drove the air from her lungs. She staggered back, stunned. In 300 fights, no one had ever managed that. Ji-won pressed his advantage, but carefully. He was not trying to humiliate her. He was simply fighting to win, using every tool his training had given him. He mixed strikes with throws, hard attacks with soft deflections, brutal efficiency with tactical thinking. Drextel spoke to the Emperor again. "This is how humans wage war, my lord. Not with superior strength, but with adaptation. With persistence. They learn faster than any species I've studied. Each exchange makes them more dangerous because they never make the same mistake twice." 7 minutes. Kelva was bleeding from a cut above her eye, her breathing labored. She had landed several solid hits on Ji-won. His lip was split, his left eye was swelling, and he was limping slightly from a kick to his thigh. But he was still moving forward, still calm, still fighting with that terrible patience. The princess realized something that chilled her to the core. He was not trying to knock her out or force a submission. He was systematically breaking down her defenses, testing her limits, learning exactly how much punishment she could take. He was hunting her. Why will you not fall? She gasped, launching another attack. This time Ji-won spoke, his voice quiet but clear. Because I have fallen before. I have been broken. I have lost everything. And I learned that falling does not matter. Getting back up does. He caught her next strike and pulled her off balance. As she stumbled, he swept her legs. She crashed to the ground for the first time in the fight. The crowd's roar was deafening. Calva rolled away and came up, but slower now. Her confidence was shattered. She was facing something she did not understand. This human took damage that would have stopped most beings and just kept coming. Every technique she knew, he countered. Every strategy she tried, he adapted to 10 minutes in the human viewing box. Crew members were cheering. They had watched Ji-won for 3 years, seeing only the quiet engineer. Now they understood what he had been hiding. The strength was not in his muscles, but in his mind, his will, his refusal to ever give up. Calva tried one final desperate attack, throwing everything she had into a combination that had never failed her. Ji-won defended against the first 3 strikes, absorbed the 4th and 5th with his arms, then stepped inside her guard and struck her 3 times in rapid succession. Solar plexus, throat, temple. The princess dropped to one knee, gasping. Her vision was blurred. Her body was screaming at her to quit, to rest, to submit. She had never felt this way before. Defeated. Broken. Ji-won stood over her, battered and bleeding but still standing. He did not move to finish her. He just waited. 15 minutes had passed. The arena was in chaos. Aliens were shouting in disbelief. The impossible was happening before their eyes. A human, a weak, slow, fragile human, was defeating the greatest warrior in the Draxian Empire. Calva tried to stand. Her legs wobbled and she fell back to her knees. She looked up at Ji-won, seeing him clearly for the first time. Not an engineer. Not prey. A warrior who had been forged in fires she could not imagine. How? She whispered. Ji-won extended his hand to her, palm open. Not an attack, but an offer. You trained to be perfect, he said quietly. I trained to survive. You fought for glory. I fought because losing meant death. You are a warrior, princess. But I am something else. What are you? Human? Ji-won said simply. And we do not know how to quit. Calva stared at his hand, then at his face. She saw no mockery there, no cruelty. Just tired eyes that had seen too much, and a warrior's respect for another warrior. Slowly, she reached up and took his hand. The crowd fell silent as Ji-won helped Princess Calva to her feet. She swayed, and he steadied her, keeping his grip firm until she found her balance. Shirath floated down, its voice uncertain for the first time. The human fighter is victorious? Calva raised Ji-won's hand herself. He is victorious, she said, her voice carrying across the silent arena. I yield. The arena exploded. Not with mockery now, but with something else. Shock, awe, and from some corners, genuine respect. Humanity had just announced itself to the galaxy in the clearest way possible. Not with words or diplomacy, but with the oldest language in the universe. The language of survival. The language of a species that had clawed its way up from primitive origins through sheer stubborn refusal to die. And every alien watching knew that they had underestimated humanity. They would not make that mistake again. The medical bay was quiet, except for the soft hum of alien healing technology. Ji-won sat on an examination table while a medical drone tended to his injuries. His left eye was badly swollen, his ribs were bruised, and his knuckles were torn and bleeding. But he was alive. He had one. Captain Minho stood nearby, still trying to process what he had witnessed. 3 years, he said quietly. 3 years you worked on my ship, fixing engines, running diagnostics, and I never knew. Ji-won winced as the drone applied regenerative gel to his split lip. You were not supposed to know, Captain. That part of my life was over, was it? Minho asked. Because what I saw in that arena was not a man who left his warrior self behind. That was a man who never stopped being a warrior. He just pretended for a while. Ji-won was quiet, looking at his damaged hands. Minho was right, of course. He had tried to convince himself that he could leave it all behind, that he could become someone new. But the truth was simpler and harder. You could change what you did, but you could not change what you were. Ambassador Yuna entered the medical bay, her expression a mix of relief and something else. Pride, maybe. The Draxian Emperor wants to speak with you, she said. Privately. Ji-won nodded and stood, moving stiffly. The drone protested, but he waved it away. Some pain was good. It reminded you that you were still alive. The meeting took place in a neutral conference room. The Draxian Emperor was massive, even larger than his daughter, his scales a deep purple that spoke of great age. Beside him stood Advisor Drextel and Princess Kelva herself, now cleaned up and wearing simple robes instead of armor. Ji-won entered alone, as requested. He bowed slightly, showing respect but not submission. The Emperor studied him for a long moment. Ji-won Park, he rumbled, his voice like distant thunder. You have accomplished something remarkable today. You defeated the finest warrior the Draxian Empire has produced in 3 generations. Your daughter is an excellent fighter, Ji-won said. Under different circumstances, the outcome might have been different. Kelva stepped forward. No, she said firmly. Do not diminish what you did. You won because you are better. Not stronger, not faster, but better. She met his eyes. I want to understand how. I want you to train me. Ji-won looked at her in surprise. Train you? I have spent my entire life believing that strength and speed were what mattered in combat. You showed me I was wrong. You fought with strategy, with patience, with an understanding of warfare that I lack. She gestured to her father. The Emperor has agreed to suspend all trade disputes and offer Earth a formal alliance. But personally, I am asking you to teach me what you know. Ji-won shook his head slowly. I'm sorry, Princess, but I cannot. Why not? She looked genuinely hurt. Is it because I challenged you? Because I insulted your people? No, Ji-won said gently. It is because I am done with war. What you saw in that arena was not something I am proud of. It was something necessary, but that does not make it good. I do not want to create more warriors. I want to build things, fix things, create instead of destroy. The Emperor leaned forward. A wise answer. But if you will not train our warriors, will you at least share your wisdom? Not combat techniques, but the philosophy behind them. Ji-won considered this. What do you want to know? Kelva spoke first. How did you absorb so much damage and keep fighting? I hit you with strikes that should have broken bones. Pain is just information, Ji-won said. It tells you that you are injured, but it does not force you to stop. Humans learn early that we are fragile compared to most predators on our world. We learn that toughness is not about being unable to be hurt. It is about choosing to continue despite being hurt. Drextel nodded slowly. Your species evolved as persistence hunters, yes? You would chase prey for days until it collapsed from exhaustion. That is part of it, Ji-won agreed. But it is more than biology. It is cultural. Human history is full of people who refused to quit even when quitting made sense. We celebrate the ones who kept going when everyone else gave up. That becomes part of who we are. And the adaptability? The Emperor asked. The way you learned from each exchange? Survival instinct, Jiwan said. On Earth, the strongest predator was not always the one who survived. Sometimes it was the smartest, or the most adaptable, or the one who could change tactics when the situation changed. Humans learned that the key to survival was not having one perfect technique. It was being able to use any technique that worked. Calva absorbed this, her expression thoughtful. So when you said you trained to survive rather than to be perfect, I meant that perfection is a trap, Jiwan finished. Perfect technique works wonderfully until you face someone who does not follow the same rules. Then you have to adapt, and if you had only ever trained for perfection, adaptation becomes harder. He looked at the princess directly. You are an incredible fighter, Calva, but you have never had to improvise, never had to make do with less than ideal circumstances, never had to fight when injured or exhausted. That is not weakness. That is just inexperience. Then how do I gain that experience without? She trailed off. Without losing? Jiwan smiled slightly. That is the trap. True learning often comes from failure. From being broken and having to rebuild yourself stronger. From facing something you cannot defeat and finding a way anyway. The room was quiet as they all considered this. Earth's alliance is accepted, the Emperor said finally, and I will issue a formal announcement to the galactic community. Humanity is to be treated as equals, with full rights and privileges. Anyone who challenges this will answer to the Draxian Empire. Jiwan bowed deeper this time. Thank you, Your Majesty. This means more than you know. There is one more thing, Calva said. I want to apologize. Not just for the challenge, but for my arrogance. I looked at humanity and saw only weakness because you were not like us. I will not make that mistake again. Apology accepted, Jiwan said. And I will offer you one piece of training advice, free of charge. What is that? Strength is not just about power. It is about knowing when to use it and when to hold back. You are strong enough to break most opponents easily. The real challenge is learning when not to. When to show mercy, when to end a fight without causing unnecessary harm, when to turn an enemy into a friend. Calva smiled. Like you did today. Like I tried to do, Jiwan corrected. I am not perfect either, Princess. I am just someone who has made a lot of mistakes and tried to learn from them. 2 weeks later, Jiwan was back in the engine room of Captain Minho's ship, running a standard diagnostic on the fusion core. The swelling around his eye had gone down, and the bruises had faded to yellow and green. In a few more days, there would be no visible sign of the fight at all, but the galaxy had changed. News of the duel had spread everywhere. Humans were no longer seen as weak newcomers. They were respected, sometimes feared, and always watched more carefully. Trade agreements were being renegotiated with more favorable terms. Other species were reaching out, wanting to establish diplomatic relations. A young cadet named Hana approached him hesitantly. She was fresh from Earth, assigned to the engineering department just 3 days ago. Excuse me, sir? Can I ask you something? Jiwan looked up from his work. What is it, cadet? How did you do it? How did you beat someone so much stronger than you? Jiwan set down his tools and thought about how to answer. I did not try to be stronger than her, Hana. I just refused to give up. That is the thing about being human. We are not the fastest, not the strongest, not the most naturally gifted. But we are stubborn. We are adaptable. And we have this strange habit of surviving things that should kill us. Is that enough? Hana asked. Just being stubborn? Sometimes, Jiwan said. Sometimes it is the only thing that matters. The galaxy is full of species that are better than us in specific ways. But very few of them understand persistence the way we do. Very few of them have that voice in the back of their head that says, one more step, one more try, one more push, even when everything seems hopeless. Hana nodded slowly. Thank you, sir. That helps. After she left, Ji-won returned to his work. The diagnostic showed a minor fluctuation in the plasma flow that needed adjusting. Simple work. Peaceful work. The kind of work he loved. Captain Minho found him there an hour later. We have new orders, he said. The diplomatic convoy is requesting an escort through the outer rim. They specifically asked for this ship. Because of me? Ji-won asked without looking up. Because of you, Minho confirmed. Your presence sends a message. Humanity is not to be pushed around. That was not why I fought, Ji-won said quietly. I know. You fought because it was necessary. Because someone had to stand up. That is what makes it meaningful. Minho paused. You know, you could transfer to a combat ship. They would take you in a heartbeat. Probably give you command of your own unit. Ji-won finally looked up. I am happy here, Captain. Fixing engines. Keeping the ship running. That is what I want to do. Minho smiled. Good, because I am not letting my best engineer go anywhere. He turned to leave, then stopped. Ji-won, thank you. For everything after the captain left, Ji-won stood alone in the engine room, listening to the steady hum of the fusion core. Outside the ship, the stars streamed by as they traveled through space. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was still talking about what had happened, still trying to understand.